you could also buy a few Africans who are horrendously expensive by comparison. You are not going to choose the most expensive form of labor if your intention is to make a profit. Okay, so we're assuming that there is rationality in all of this. You are not going to choose the most expensive form of labor available to you if your intention is to make a profit. So Africans are the lowest in the pecking order on the global market when the West Indian islands are being colonized. Now, we then have to ask the question, how effective was this earlier model? The Spanish discovered in the Northern Caribbean that the model was ineffective. Within 50 years, that is by the 1550s, the collapse of the indigenous population had reached a level that was described as genocidal. There was, in fact, a decimation of the native population in the Northern Caribbean. And we know that a tremendous body of literature came out of the 16th century, most of it led by Spanish clergymen who arrived in the region. We know the famous story of Las Casas and many of the other Dominican and Jesuit priests who were concerned about the role of the Catholic Church in giving oversight to this decimation of a native population. And out of that concern of the genocide, the discussion with the Spanish monarch that something must be done to prevent the entire elimination of the native population. Then we began to get some reforms to that system. The Spanish crown began to say, okay, well, you cannot enslave them, you can contract them, you can use them for a year or two, and constraints were then placed upon the Spanish settlers in terms of how they use the remainder of the native population. So there was an attempt by the Spanish crown, driven by the local clergymen, the Catholic clergymen, to rescue the remainder of the native population in Cuba, Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, and so on. So the bottom literally fell out of the market in the Spanish islands. An effort was made to bring in more European workers from Spain. But remember, Spain is not a densely populated country. Here is a mighty and powerful military and imperial nation, but it's a small country. So it does not have the market, the labor market at home, to supply its own workers to the Caribbean. It tried and did not succeed. A few thousand were brought in to cut the canes, work in the mines and so on, but it was insufficient to maintain the Spanish interests in the Northern Caribbean. So the Spanish labor market at home was not available to Spanish settlers in the West Indies. So the native population has been decimated, crippled, a few left behind, and we can describe it as genocide because we describe genocide as a circumstance in which you impose a reality upon the people that prevents them from reproducing themselves naturally. Because one thing we know about people is that they have sex and they have babies. And anytime a population does not grow naturally, something is preventing it from growing.